Okay, so I'm going to be talking about something that I actually learned about 10 years ago that maybe some of you know, although I've been surprised that a lot of people still haven't encountered this. But until about 20 years ago, in both psychology and in education, it was widely believed that the learning of material and the assessment of that learning were really completely separate things. I mean, students learn things by reading and by coming to lectures and maybe talking to each other, but then we gave them tests and that's how we assess them. And what this line of research has shown is that that understanding is really completely wrong. And so I'm going to be talking about this thing called the testing effect, which is really the guiding principle behind the organization of my course, but also how I suggest to students that they should study. Now, although this is called the testing effect, I've never really liked that name because the key insight is really that practice retrieving information from your memory is the critical thing that you do to actually learn it well. It's not rereading, it's not, all these other things, it's having to recall information. And now traditional testing is one way to bring about this retrieval practice and hence the name, but there are many others and you'll see a little bit of that as I go on. So a number of studies have so the key concept is that because of the way memory works, after the initial exposure to material, the best way to increase your learning of it is to have to recall it. And the amazing thing is that this works even if when you try to recall it, you're not completely successful. And now a lot of studies, we're really talking about hundreds at this point, have shown that retrieval practice works better than rereading the material, than underlining and highlighting material and going back and rereading that. Then concept mapping if the book is open. It turns out concept mapping if the book is closed is a really good thing, but that's not what students do usually. I feel somewhat obligated always when I talk about this to actually talk about a study. This is from Karpicki and Blunt. This happens to be one of, as I say, many studies. But what they did in this study is that they had students read 500-word passages at a high school level. The bars on the left are their recall a day later if all they did was read the passage. So you can see that reading the passage once, it doesn't matter whether you're testing them on memorization questions or on inference questions, they're recalling about a quarter of what they read, okay? But if at that time when they read the passage, you then ask them to reread it, okay, to restudy it, okay, or to come up with a concept map for it with the book open, or to do retrieval practice, which is basically testing. They got tested on the material. They didn't get feedback in this retrieval practice thing. What you can see is that rereading the material helps a little bit. Concept mapping helps a little bit, but the thing that helps the most is this retrieval practice. And these differences get even bigger when the time lags get longer. This was only a day later. And when after the retrieval practice, they actually get immediate feedback. So if they can't remember something, if they can go study it then it helps even more. So these studies were designed to sort of be pure case things, and one of the things they did was actually equate the amount of time that students had in each of these conditions. So what do I do in my course? Well, for each reading, initially there are two types of review, okay? My textbook has something called inquisitive, which is a wonderful self-paced, you study until you get the grade you want kind of thing, but it's fairly focused. I also give them these open-ended review questions. So two kinds of review. I talked a couple weeks ago about how I create these class groups and they watch these video modules together, and embedded in these video modules are questions and opportunities for group discussion. And these are organized to stimulate their recall and their engagement with the material and to view the material from different perspectives, because that's a big part of this. And then every other week I give what's a fairly big 40-minute long test covering the last 2 weeks of material, but it's low stakes. It doesn't count very much. I drop the lowest grade. And so it's a good way for them not only to self-assess what they've learned, but also their learning approach. And so I make a big effort to reach out to students who aren't doing well and really talk to them about how they should study, how they should, for example, read material and then close the book and then take notes. When they take notes when they're reading, what they're doing is almost worthless, okay? And so that's really what I wanted to have to say, except that at the end I then give a few cumulative final exams, so they have to encounter everything else and recall it once more. Okay.